Hey, my friends, thanks for joining me for another Wednesday night program. Today we have Dave Swanson. Some of you may remember him. He's a good friend of mine from the IEPPV community. David is a Brooks graduate from how long ago, David? Like 25 years ago?
Oh man,
Several years.
1986.
1986, yeah.
However many years that equates.
David is a full-time photographer, and he's done many, many things. Real estate being one of them. He did our programs this year on real estate photography, but he's an exceptionally good photographer. And some of the images that I want to show you, are these bad boys right here. And he's going to talk us through the process of how he does this in a very, very simple setup. It's not as complicated as we might think, stuff that we can all do while we're at home. And David, without any further ado, let's just jump right in. Let's jump over to you and explain to us a little bit what your setup is. I'm going to show some photos while you're doing that.
Well, I wanted to do this as cheap as I possibly could. I didn't want to put a lot of money into it, and so I went down. I mean, after setting up my backdrop system so many times, I decided to leave that and go down to Home Depot. And basically what you're seeing is some PVC piping that I just built, a little system that I could deliver a drop of water through. Basically, that's just a pin going through the cup and filling up the cup. Now, the pin is the pin that's got one of those big heads on it. So you do want to kind of punch it out so that you can get the drip to go through it. But then the top of that head of that pin kind of stops, the water from really draining out. And then it allows a delivery system, so it kind of travels down that pin to hit the same spot in the water.
Right.
And
Now, I'm looking at your system. Now, this could easily be done, and I'm kind of going this direction because many of us are still quarantined. If you don't want to go build this rack like what you've built, which here is kind of an overall, you can kind of see. You could literally get a couple chairs, a broomstick, right, and clip that cup up there on the top, get that pin through there, shoot on the floor, shoot on the kitchen table. But you built this so that you could clean it up and you could put it away.
Yeah, and I just store this basically behind my door in my office here. So whenever I decide I want to pull it out and shoot some pictures, it's easy. It's an easy setup.
Right.
So, and I, you know what, $20 in supplies will get you all of that. So just a little bit of time at Home Depot and coming home and putting it together. Now I am in a small environment here. I normally like to set this up like in my garage and have bigger tables so that I have room to move flashes and stuff like that. You'll notice if you can see, can they see the live feed? Or yeah, I've only got 2 flashes out on that table. That's an 11 by 14 developing tray, actually used in black and white, and then my card behind it. But that little white card behind it, I like to be able to move in and out. But since I'm in such a confined space here in my office, it's rather close to the thing. But it doesn't mean that you can't get some great shots. You can easily get some great shots. So
Right. Now, what you don't have here in the photos that I can see in the background is you've put gels over the strobes so that that light is hitting that card, and then that card is going to reflect in the water. And we're gonna switch to your camera view in a little bit because I think that's really important when you're doing the water droplets. For those that haven't done it before, you can't actually light the water. You have to create reflections, and that's what that card is for.
correct.
Josh asked, where can you find a black tray? He can only find gray ones. It almost doesn't matter if it's a gray or a black tray because you're shooting on an angle, and the angle of reflectance, that light coming back, you have to underexpose for the brightness of the reflection. So it should make most of your trays go dark. You can use a cookie sheet.
It should, yeah. As long as you got something dark, I think down below, you'd be fine. Kind of like black glass. I mean, you could actually go out and buy some glass and paint it black on the bottom. But
Yeah, I'm like you. I've tried many different ones. I actually stole one of Margie's crappy cookie sheets and I spray painted it black on the inside. And but if you don't want to do that, then just layer it with aluminum foil and spray paint the aluminum foil black, and then you can peel it out and throw it away, and nobody's
Correct.
mad at you for that.
Correct.
So
So basically, you know, I did try this with a white tray, and yeah, white you don't want to use white unless you want a high key shot.
well, white does do something different though, because it
It
kicks
does.
light up from underneath, and you get a nice light in the bottom of the water droplet. So
There's
this
so
is
many different possibilities in
right.
the way you can photograph this thing. It's just unbelievable. So, not if one method isn't working for you, try another method. But yeah, just like you said, you don't want to light the water drop. You gotta make it see something. So, and in that process, you basically light the background, not the water drop.
Right, and if you don't, if you have colored cardboard or construction paper, you can put that in the back, and
Hmm.
then you can shoot white light at it, and then you get that colored reflection. Or you can mix and match colors. If you have a green background and you shoot a blue lit strobe on it, you get purple, and you get some weird combinations of light, which I think
Like
is
you can
kind of
even use drafting vellum and light through the drafting vellum from behind with different colors of lights too. So it really doesn't matter. That's what we did up at school. We would take like 611 Sumpact flashes at 1/128th power, and we would create a bank of flashes that would light through vellum and
yeah, yeah.
do it. But this is a little easier the way I do this now.
So before we get to your setup, can you explain how did you get the background lighting on this image in
Okay,
particular,
so
where you've got the orange in the middle and the cooler colors on the
I'm
outside?
gonna give you a little trade secret. I can't do this here tonight because you do need a bigger table to do this. However, this image was actually created by splitting the. I like to use tinfoil to get all these crazy effects going on in the water. So I literally split the tinfoil in half, and then had another card further down the table that I lit with an orange light. And of course, when you throw that all out of focus in the background, it just becomes this nice blur
Right.
back there. So um, uh, there's another one, the main one that you used on the website or whatever. That one right there, I actually punched a hole through the tin foil to create that halo, and I just like kept moving it until the drop was right somewhat close to it,
Kind of where you want, yeah.
and then hoped I could get a drop right there.
So it's all the great experiment, right?
Yeah, so that's got like 4 flashes on that one. You got a couple of different blues. You got a deep blue and a lighter blue, and
Hmm.
then you've got a magenta colored gel, and then I've got that orange gel on that back fill card in the back, where I punched the hole through the tin foil to be able to allow that to show through like that.
So tell us a little bit about camera settings. What focal length, aperture, shutter speed, what do you feel you need to get this the right amount of depth of field and crispness?
Okay, so critical focus is what you want. It doesn't really matter. I won't say it won't matter what f-stop you use. I mean, I like to use like f8 or higher, but and see at f8 you'll really start to blur out that background, like in that shot right there.
Yeah.
But if you start using like f16, f22, you're going to have a lot of sharpness throughout the whole image. So and some of these things I was trying to go for a more subtle background so that the drop would be pulled forward literally and stand out among, like that one there, standing out amongst the background.
Right.
So that was intentionally shot at like f8 or f7.1 or f9, somewhere in that range, to be able to let that background go so out of focus.
But you need
Um,
enough depth of field that you can see the all of the droplet. Hopefully, I mean, like maybe that's your
Correct.
starting
That's the
point, and
main
then be
thing. So,
creative after that,
yeah,
right?
you want to carry that depth of field. Now, I did not, when I photographed those, I did not have a macro lens at the time. So I actually used my Nikon 80 to 200 with
Hmm.
extension bellows or extension tubes on that at 200 millimeters.
Yeah,
So
and
that's
another
how I
thing that
photographed a lot of those.
Another thing that's important is that we don't always have to use a macro to get in nice and close. In this situation, if you have, say, a 70 to 200, you can shoot at 200. You're going to be back a little bit further, and
Hmm.
then that's going to give you a greater sense of depth of field. And yes, you have to crop it,
Hmm.
but it's going to give you more depth of field,
It'll give
which
you
is
more depth of field. Yeah, the
which is
closer
easier to
you get to that,
control.
yeah, the closer you get to that drop, the more critical your focus
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And what do you find is a good shutter speed to stop that drop? Because the droplets actually, when they fall, they change shape, right? Like they
they do.
actually wobble. So
It's
you gotta get it.
actually, it's not the shutter speed. I have mine set at 125, just so it's in sync. But it's the flash that stops it. Your flashes are going
Right.
off at anywhere between 10 thousandths and 50 thousandths of a second, depending on where you have them
That
set.
was a loaded
So
question, by the way. I that was
I know. I was thinking Troy should know this one.
No, no, well, no, because if you use a traditional flash, like a studio flash, it's not going to stop the strobe
No,
because traditional studio flashes usually shoot at like 1/500th to 1/200th of a second or something in that range,
right,
and
right,
it doesn't really stop the droplet dead in its tracks like it would. That's why speed lights are so good for this because
right.
and especially when they're using higher power, they have such a high burst of intense light, very, very, very short amount of time, like one
Correct.
50,000th of a second.
I
So
think these Nikon SB 800s cap out at about 40 thousandths of a second if you're at 128 power.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and tonight I'm just going to show you the easy route on how to do this because I've just got them set in TTL, and I'm using the onboard flash as the commander to set the other two flashes off. It's just an
right.
easy way to go, and that way if you add gels and gels are different densities, you don't have to really worry too much about getting the correct exposure. So
Yeah, I mean, if you're comfortable shooting manual, shoot manual, like whatever you want to do, get a good exposure. But the TTL is nice
mhm.
also because as the droplets change and the camera's seeing different things in the background, but you got to play with it because like it's going to see this
Yeah,
reflection and it's going to see black and it's probably going to overexpose by a couple stops. So it's a really good exercise in understanding how light works.
yep,
This is great understanding of light. So
yep.
well, let's
Basically chrome because that's what you're lighting is basically chrome.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Transparent chrome.
Transparent chrome. I know. And because I know a lot of you guys have seen my garage and I built a lot of stuff. So my garage is full of like hundreds of different kinds of chemicals from WD-40 to acetones to everything. So I'm thinking like, well, different chemicals have to drop different, and they
Right,
do, and they splash different. So
right.
one thing that you can do other than the droplets, where basically we're getting the droplet hitting the water and then that column's going to rise, that's kind of what we're shooting today. But there is the splash aspect of that, where if you just put like a nice piece of glass or a bottom of a tumbler or something, and you put a little bit of water on there, very very shallow, and let that drop hit that, you get
Hmm.
these really nice crown shaped
Yep,
explosions, if you will.
yep.
And adding a little bit of oil or thickening agents to the
Thickening
water
agent,
can help.
right.
Yeah,
They
can
use
help a
like some
lot.
kind of like gum or some, I forget what they call it. I was going to look it up today, but they're actually something that you can buy on Amazon to
Yep.
actually thicken up the water and make it the viscosity that you want or whatever you call it.
Yep. Yeah, it's very cool stuff. I use WD-40. The problem is that it's yellow, and so it doesn't look very clean. Yeah, it looks nasty. Oh, glycerin, Annette said. Yeah, glycerin would probably work really
Yeah,
good because it's a little
glycerin
thicker.
also.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, and it's crystal clear. And I bet you could dilute that with alcohol if you want.
Xanthium gum. Yeah, that's it right
Oh,
there.
okay.
That's what I'm talking about.
Of course, Frank knows. Frank's
Good old Frank.
a
Thanks,
splash and
Frank.
crash expert. Yeah.
I got the word gum correct.
And to those of you that haven't done any of the splashing and the crashing type stuff, it 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 can get quite complex. This is the very beginning phase. You can get into actuators and computer controlled droplets, multi droplets, and you can time when that droplet's in frame at a very certain time and when it hits each other. And that's something that I know that Frank does. Not this week, because I mean, I'm sorry, not next week because that's image competition for IEPPV, but the following week we're going to have Nick Smith come on, and he's actually going to show how to use the actuators, where you get the timing set up and the droplet set up, and the computer runs the actuators, and you hit a button, it drops the drop, fires the camera, and you're good to go. So they both create really amazing images. You don't have to go that far, but I just want to sort of throw it out there, like, this is the beginning of a long, expensive addiction if you really go deep. If you go deep, you don't have to.
You can pass the time really good by just
you can
thousands of frames later, and it's like, oh.
Yeah. And we're going to get into, let's go ahead and get into your setup here. But one thing I'll suggest to you guys, if you're playing with this, you can add bubbles to your water. Really, really easily. Just use a straw, get yourself some bubble mix, blow some bubbles. They'll land on the water and they'll actually sit there for a long time. And you can move them around with a straw, like a blow on them, and you can get water droplets coming through them. And you could do some. Anyway, we're getting a little.
If you bring up that other image, the purple one, the more magenta one, not that one, the magenta one.
Hang on, I wasn't ready.
That one right there, that is with dry ice in the water.
Oh, cool. I was going to ask you how you did that. I figured it was probably dry ice, yeah.
So, but you have to be there with a straw and keep the dry ice, the fog, from infiltrating into where the drop is hitting. So that was click and blow, click or blow and click. You know?
Oh my gosh.
So that one was hard to do. And out of my series, man, I must have done about 1,000 images on that. That's really the only one I like.
Yeah. This doesn't have a high keeper rate, this particular methodology. So let's get a look at your system over there. Now I know you've got a camera connected, so you're going to do a share and show us how you focus. Okay. Oh, you know what I was going to ask you too is, when you put the pin through the cup, do you want that pin to fit really, really tight, or do you have to kind of experiment with it to kind of get enough looseness for the water?
Kind of like you grab a larger pin and make the hole with that, and then put the next size smaller, if you can find one just a little bit smaller. So it does allow some, because I will punch up from the bottom so that it kind of like creates this, the plastic goes up in, so that when the head of the pin sits on top of that, it kind of blocks a lot of the water that wants to flow through. So,
got it.
And in some cases, you kind of like, if it's not flowing enough, then I'll kind of like ream it out a little bit and then try it again, and just doing it until I get the drip the way I wanted it.
Yeah. You can imagine that you can make a dripping mechanism in a million ways with the valves.
This is the most simplest drip,
and that's why we're doing that.
You can make.
All right, so we've got our tray of water. We've got a cup and it's dripping. Okay.
We have a cup that's dripping.
And so the next thing that we need to do, and we've got our card in the background. We've even got our strobes, one on each side at 45-degree angles. That's great. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to focus. So how do we focus on a drop of water?
So I just used this to start with. Troy, you had mentioned a bolt, but I never thought of a bolt. That's a good idea. But I just placed this on here until it starts to hit the drip, kind of in the middle, and then I focused on the edge of that.
So can you show us in camera what that can you take a shot of that?
I sure can.
Yeah.
Well, let me just see what it looks like here.
So tell me about the height of the drip source, because we talked about that a little bit. Because if it's too low, it happens too fast. Any higher doesn't really matter, right? So you're probably 4 feet off the water?
I'm 4 feet off the water. Oh,
the drip.
These are 3 feet.
Okay, 3 feet. Yeah,
and that's just because that's what was bought. That's what they had, and I didn't cut them down. So okay, so here's the ruler that I put down there. Can you see that?
Yeah, just the very, very front edge of the ruler there.
It's just the front edge of the ruler, and it's just a starting point. And from that point, and in fact, let me take these things off.
So Richard was asking about, how high, the drip source is. And what I found is the higher you go, you don't get a more dramatic splash. There's like maximum velocity after about 3 or 4 feet. if you're too low, you really don't give yourself time to watch the drip
Correct.
and time it, which is really all we're going to do. Is we're just going to time it. And David's even going to try to time it with the computer remote lag,
Exactly.
which is even harder.
Exactly. I did this. So it took me several of them, but I finally got one to
Perfect. Well, we're
time
going
out.
to
And that's like, this is like where you want it to rest right up on top of that column. And that's what I always try and do. Right? And that is very difficult to do.
well, we expect you to do that for us.
Oh, exactly. You got all night. So anyways, so once I found my starting point for my focus, I will take that out. And let me add a little bit more water.
Yeah, I actually, when I set mine up, I used a 2 liter water bottle, and I went down to Home Depot, and
Uh-huh.
I bought an ice maker valve. You know, with that you use the white tubing on,
Right.
and I drilled a hole and I screwed that in the cap of the 2 liter bottle and screwed that on and hung the bottle upside down, and then I could open that valve to any volume that I wanted.
And that's perfect.
Very easy to do, yeah.
This is not. I wouldn't say this is the best method to use, but it was just what I had thought of on the fly. But it did give me all those nice, spectacular images.
I know, and image competition wins too.
So so we're gonna try and do. So you see my other screen? You see the board right now?
Yeah, we see the board. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna try and take a shot. This was that without gels, and I kind of like to start without the gels with just a basic background, so that I can see my focus and all of that. So I just took one. Let's see where that one went.
Oh,
What do you know?
it's not in focus.
Yeah. So now at this point, you're now looking at the image and saying, am I front or back focused? So it looks like I'm kind of front focused. So actually, that column isn't that far off.
You're back focused probably because you're tilting down on it, right? So
correct. So you just need to remember on your lens which direction is infinity and which is close up. So I want to push back towards infinity, probably, right? Or
yeah, you want to focus into it.
yeah, I want to focus into it. So
now, notice that the camera angle is kind of important here, because if the camera angle was down lower and shooting up higher, you wouldn't be shooting into the reflection of the water. You would get the background, which I see a lot, and then you'll see the edge of the tray and stuff.
right.
So you do have to kind of work with that.
I didn't catch
That was crappy. That was really bad. Now you could get a Pluto trigger with a laser that catches that water droplet that goes through there.
Did I go the wrong way? Did that one look worse than this one?
This is why the bolt works.
This is why what works?
The bolt, because you make the bolt. The bolt is tall.
Well, at Brooks we used lasers,
Yeah. Well,
so we didn't have to really go that way.
so one of the reasons that we're doing it this way, as opposed to just getting a perfect image right away, is that this is what you're going to have to work your way through, and the problems you have to solve. Oh, there you go.
Exactly. Okay, that one's a little better. But anyways,
Keep going.
You want me to keep going?
Yeah, we want to see a good one.
Oh, jeez. Let's go a little bit more. Now, I do have that lens in manual focus, so it's really easy just to adjust a little bit at a time. Okay. Hey, we're getting there.
We're getting there.
Too late. Let me do it again.
Let's see. How late is it? Oh, but that is kind of cool though.
Yeah, you can get some really cool effects, like the ball sitting on the thing. It's always fun to see too. No, I'm not doing very good. So once you get everything focused and aligned, then I start changing my colors, changing my background and stuff like that. And like this first shot I was showing, this is this setup right here with just gels on the lights. So now you can add any gels that you want. And on Amazon, you can get these really cool gels for like $7.
Yeah, you get a pack of like a bunch of gels. Yeah.
So, and the nice thing about the Nikon is it's got, maybe Canon's the same way, but it's got these flappy things that you can just slide the gel right in. You don't have to attach it to nothing. The other thing I do have to say though, your lens will get wet. So when I was using my 80 to 200, because that lens is so far out in the front, the actual lens is out there, it was getting wet all the time. But using the micro lens, the macro lens, at least that is pretty far recessed, so it doesn't get as bad. But
right.
So now that I've just added those, we can see what this looks like.
So you put a blue gel on the left and a red gel on the right.
And a magenta.
A magenta.
Yeah, I still need to play with focus, but
yeah, you need to focus a little closer.
But you know.
So what we've determined is that your focusing paint stir stick doesn't work that great.
Well, probably not. But hey, I'm creating all those great shots with that paint stick. So.
I know.
That's amazing, isn't it? That
you got worse.
Yeah, I went the wrong way. I wanted to make sure. Okay. Sometimes you.
So you're in really tight on this. If you were to back the camera up, not that you have to do this, I'm just saying, but if you were to back the camera up, you're gonna give yourself a better chance with a better depth of field, right?
And actually, if you look at this one down here, that one was actually pretty.
Yeah.
Not too far off. But yeah, focus is the hardest thing to deal with. And, you know, it's always best to get the camera as low to the water as you possibly can so that you're just skimming the very front to the back of all water. Because this is just all water. You don't see any terrain. That's the reflection that you're seeing in the card in the background with the flash.
Right.
So if I were to raise my camera up just a little bit, it will you will see the tray. So you want to be able to hit it as straight on as possible, but you know, within reason. Yeah, if I were to back the camera off, it would be easier to pull focus because you would have a little bit more depth of field. Now I can come in here. I'm shooting at.
Is that a zoom lens?
No, this is a macro. This is
I was going to say, because I was going to say, if you pull the camera back, maybe we can see what it looks like if you accidentally get too much tray in there.
Well, let me.
And this is how we do water drops.
Yeah, and if you're having I should probably get a bolt, huh? Because another thing I will use is a flashlight.
Oh, where you can see where it's hitting the water? Yeah.
Yeah, and you can see those your highlights from in that brief second. Let me try this. So that is better.
Yeah, that's better.
Better focus. I'm getting a better focus on that, you know, just by backing it off a little bit better.
So if you actually wanted to get the ball, you know, that ball of water after the center column comes up, you would want to photograph later.
Correct.
Right.
This is I keep hitting it just a fraction of a second too early, but it's like that is the most difficult thing to do when you're trying to time it by eye, and especially through the computer.
The computer offers. That's good.
That one's not too bad. Now the other route that you can go with this, which is this is where all the creativity and the fun gets to, because then whatever you start doing, whatever you can think of. So I decided, what would it be like to add a paper that has a whole bunch of lines on it? So, and what kind of effect would you have
So when that water droplet is falling, one of the things that I did when I was shooting is I would have like some reference point in the background that I would use, like, oh, it's just passing that stick, or it's just passing that, crack in the floor or whatever.
Right, that's exactly it. If I'm over sitting, actually doing the shutter, because right now for using my mouse, I'm literally having to trigger the camera off as soon as I see the drop, almost right after it hits. But when I'm over here on the camera, can people see me or not?
Yeah.
Okay, so when I'm at the camera, I'm actually looking at about right here, just above the camera, because your reaction time is so much faster than the computer.
Now, what about using like the motor drive, like like doing the same thing, timing it, but then shooting off 4 or 5 images, or 19 images, whatever camera
Well,
you're
if
shooting.
your flashes will do that,
Mm-hmm.
mine won't do that by tripping it off through using the top flash up here. It'll you you get like one flash a second, so it's not.
Yeah, so Linda, so the challenge is going to be, can your flashes keep up? So if you're shooting, maybe at 1/100th power, 1/128th power, you might get 3, 4, 5, 6 shots out of it, depending on
Correct. Well,
what
you
aperture.
might, yeah, but it
You
does happen
might.
so fast that I don't have the camera that can do that. I think you need like a D4, D5, or a D3 or something like that to be able to rapid fire these flashes.
Can you fire your flashes in live view?
I cannot.
You can't? Are you sure?
The
You
camera will
can.
not turn on in live view
Hmm.
set up like this. I tried it.
Yeah, you can definitely do it in on like the Z, or on like a mirrorless. Definitely can.
Right, and I was going
Yes,
to
the
use the
Sony and the
Z, but
Panasonic Z.
then that proposed another problem. I wasn't able to connect into it.
Oh, in live view. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so I went back to the D750, but let's try another one here. So this is a background, and actually I wasn't too bad of a shot. So that was just this. I don't know if anybody saw that.
So Linda's asking, can continuous lights be used?
No, you can't get them. For
Well,
one, even if you could, but you're going to have motion. You're not going to stop that water drop.
I mean, technically you could, right? If you're shooting it like 1/5000th of a second.
Yeah, that would still be pushing it,
Yeah. Yeah.
because we tried that at one of the IEPPV
Yeah.
classes, and Bob was trying the continuous lights, but just wasn't having any results. So then I took and made something like this.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Yeah, Linda. So the challenge that you have with continuous lights is that you've got to get that shutter speed up extraordinarily high to stop the motion. Where with strobes, all you have to do is make sure that your shutter speed isn't picking up ambient light, and that just the strobe itself will literally stop the motion. Yeah.
Can they see that screen too, or not?
Yeah, you're sharing your screen. Yeah, so they see
Yeah.
the photo. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that wasn't too bad.
Oh, don't be so proud of yourself.
So proud of myself.
I don't want to see this in competition, by the way.
Exactly. So yeah, then you can just start playing with different colors. So we can, if we don't want that color, we can grab a different color here. Let's grab an orange.
And the cool thing you guys can do too is in your post-production, so if you use a color like, say, a red and a blue, and then they'll mix together and they'll make that maroon, you can grab those color channels in post, whether it's Photoshop or Lightroom, and you can tweak those colors to give you even more variety in there.
Look at that, almost 2 in a row.
We still haven't got the ball, though, the ball floating
I
above the
know.
column.
Well, I only did that once today so far, so
Well, we're not impressed yet. Nobody's impressed.
nobody's impressed.
You're going to get a bad review.
Hey, look at that one.
Wow.
That's not too bad, right?
No. Yeah, now notice how the droplet itself is not perfectly round, and that's because it wiggles. you know, wiggles probably isn't the right term, but it's fluid, so it's going to oscillate as it changes. So sometimes you get perfectly round and sometimes you don't. So
exactly. So after playing around with this kind of stuff, then I had the idea of going, well,
you're a little
what
quiet.
would it look
You need to
like
get
with
you're a little quiet and you're leaning out of frame. You got to lean. There you go.
so what would
Don't get so comfortable just because you got a good shot.
Oh, I love getting comfortable. So then I decided, well, what would this look like with tinfoil in the background? And that's what created most of those shots that you guys have been seeing.
Yeah, so the aluminum foil is nice because it's very specular.
So I just taped a bunch of them, or two of them, or I don't know. You know what? I went and bought the heavy duty one. This is all one piece. So the really wide one is what I did. And just got to slide it in here without getting too wet.
So Richard is asking, you know, in these droplets that you're showing, you can see the camera and you can see reflections of, you know, things in the room or your background. Have you tried doing any of these, you know, where it's like a completely black so you don't get any of those additional reflections?
Say that again. I'm not quite understanding.
So in the water drop that you have now,
Uh-huh.
you can see the camera. And if the room is bright enough, you'll be able to see other stuff behind you. So have you done anything to try to...
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Well, that's why I like to shoot out in the garage, because my garage is, by the time it hits anything, it's pretty dark, and I'll just set up in the middle of the garage. But yeah, I see what you're saying. I actually have had some weird things show up, like faces show up in these things.
Mm-hmm.
And gets a little bit freaky. Because literally, I got a picture of a woman in a drop. It's her face. I mean, just where did this come from?
One of the other things that you can do with these droplets, you can get very sophisticated in your lighting. So right now, David has two lights that are lighting the background, and that's creating the reflection. If you put two more pieces of reflector off to the sides and you lit them separately, that's going to create sort of like what's like a hatchet lighting to light along the edge of the water droplet as well. So you can really experiment a lot.
In fact, the picture of the ball that I sent you, that is actually with the flashes in the back, pointing back at, so kind of like, you know, the moon on the water, and you get that ripple effect.
The picture
that's what created that. So if you throw that up there,
that one?
Nope, the ball. It's just the ball in the lower left. That
one.
That one. So that one was actually created by ripples of the light hitting the water, and then it just happened to capture it that way. So my flashes were in the back, pointing directly at it, at the camera, basically.
So say that again.
My flashes were in the back of the tray, pointing back towards the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but yeah, you could literally. I've tinted this whole thing, so I've run fill cards all the way around and all of that, and for the most part, it because you're trying to fill that ball with something that it sees, and so it's just not black. And so, yeah, the closer that you get things to it, you can start to do that. But I have found that tinfoil does pretty good just by that. But let me see if I can.
Yeah, do some more with the tinfoil so we can see how that looks different.
But you'll get these really weird, like you can see these like squiggly lines and stuff like that in there. And another thing about, you know, trying to keep your f-stops to a lower f-stop, like f8 or f5.6 or something like that, it just starts to blur all that stuff out, and then you really focus in on the water drop.
Right.
So, you know, it's just, you can just play with this till your heart's content and what you like. Now, if you don't like in here, yeah, that's another ball sitting in the bowl.
They're all pretty cool.
They really are.
There you go.
And sometimes you can just use these things as your cell phone background for your cell phone.
Yeah, when I started playing, I started like with a little system, with a little setup, and then the trays got more sophisticated, and the trays got bigger, and
Yeah,
then you start adding, more things to it, and yeah, they grow. But you can do this on the kitchen table, super
I
easy.
was super late on that one.
Yeah, that's amateur right there.
That is super amateurish. And I'm surprised I'm even catching these. So, any more questions?
No, we don't have any more questions flowing in yet. So, what other varieties of shots can you make with this setup? So we've changed some gels, we've added some different backgrounds. What are some other things that we can do? Can we move the flashes? Can you show what that would look like putting the flash from a different angle?
Well, well, try. The problem is there's not much I could do because I don't have a whole lot
Right.
of room here on this table. But yeah, what I was talking about was I had taken these and just skimmed them back towards the camera, um, just to see what it would do.
Right. Just to kind of show either a success or a failure setup
Okay, so
because it's
this will probably be a failure, but
I think you're gonna get a lot of flare. I predict flare and crappy shot.
well, we'll see. A lot of okay, so you're seeing all the spots on my lens from
Yeah.
the water, I think. So yeah, that would be a failure. But at least I
Yeah.
know. I mean, you get these really hard um, things
That's
on
not terrible though. That's not nearly as bad as I would thought, but you don't get that the deep saturated color and then you get
correct.
those really high speculars in the water drop, which I'm not a huge fan of.
Of course, we could do this. You know,
No cheating. No cheating.
raise that saturation. But hey, you might want to come up with something really ethereal or something like that and use that in something else. You never know.
Yeah. Yeah, you can put action figures in there and Linda Kwan's asking about the bubbles. How do you get the bubbles in the bubble type images?
Okay, so the bubbles. Oh, look at that one.
There's a couple things you can do with bubbles. So I took a what is it called? A smoke machine, and I blew it into a bubble maker, and then I let the bubbles float across, and then they would drop and land on the water, and then I would try to get a water drop to land at the same time before the bubble popped.
Oh.
That's ridiculous, but
Well,
you
and
can
the funny
just
thing is if you have a big enough bubble, the water drop will penetrate through that bubble,
yep,
and the bubble won't pop.
right,
And then you get the splash inside the bubble.
yep,
So
yeah.
I haven't even tried that.
Oh yeah, I've got some of those. You know what you can also do is you can add a little bit of soap solution to the water. Not too much. You got to really because if you try to mix it in, it'll just foam on the top. But I'm talking a little tiny bit,
Mhm.
and then when the droplet hits, it'll also create a bubble that'll stay behind, from the splash itself.
Correct.
Whatever your imagination is, you can do. You can also add color to the water, so you can add a colored water in the base and just use clear water in the top when it drops in, and then you'll get that additional color and density in the splash itself.
Yep. Or you can use we used to use milk too up at Brooks, and then you can
You
you
can
can
use
you can
milk.
add color, like dyes, like red, and then drop a red drop into the milk, and then it comes up and does some fun stuff.
But we're all on quarantine. Who's going to waste milk for?
Well, the milk industry is wasting something
Yeah,
billions of gallons.
that's true.
So, any other questions? I don't know what else.
So what would be some other lighting directions that you could apply to this? There really isn't a whole lot, right? I mean, mostly it's just that reflection.
It's just the reflection, but I have tinted it with fill cards all the way around it. I've taken my fill cards and made a tent like this, and then looking into it just enough so the drop would drop through the fill cards.
Yep.
I've done all of that, and I really don't see too much of a difference between that and just doing it the way I've been doing it tonight, especially with the tinfoil. The tinfoil just scatters it everywhere.
How large is that white card you're putting in the background? It really just needs to be big enough so that it makes a nice reflection.
In fact, it was bigger than, I mean, these things were only 8.5 by 11. These cards I just printed out on my printer. I just produced the design in a program, printed it out because I just wanted to see. But that's a 1620, I think. So, and this was large enough to cover what I needed it to cover. So.
Right. And is it Bruce? Oh, yeah. Bruce made a comment that you can make milk from thinning Elmer's glue. Oh, I forgot you could do that.
You can make what?
You can make what looks like milk by thinning Elmer's glue because it's water. Elmer's glue is water soluble.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That would work really good.
So here was some ones that saw my shop earlier. It is really hard trying to time this through Lightroom. It just, yeah. So that was the best one I did tonight.
I was gonna show here. Let me pin my video. Let's see if I'll spotlight my video. So this is a water droplet that I did where I blew bubbles. So I had a straw. It was actually like 4 straws taped together, and I was standing next to the camera, like I was over there. And so what I would do is I would dip the straw in the bubble solution. I would blow the bubble, and the bubble would fall and has to very gently land on the water. And then I think I had Margie out there helping me with a straw on the other side, blow the floating bubble around, so the drop would go right through it. And like you said, you can get that drop to go right through the bubble without popping the bubble.
Yep.
Like there's another one. And this is in a super shallow tray because I wanted that little crown, that little splash crown. You have to have shallow water to do that. So you're using deep water, which is like an inch and a half. This is like just barely a thin over a piece of glass. And that's a bubble floating. But you get these, you can see all my lighting in that bubble. It is quite a nightmare. There's another one that has the splash in the middle that I never cleaned up, but gives you an idea of what you can kind of get away with and what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Nix, Dave, have you tried putting?
So has anybody else tried to shoot water drops out there?
Well, we've got Nick is in here, Frank is in here. I think a bunch of people have done that. Nick's asking if you try to put black cards on both sides of the droplets and lighting the background.
Not.
I mean, that's kind of how you started. We just didn't have the black on the sides.
Right.
So let's before we, we'll give everybody a chance to add some more questions. But before we wrap up, why don't you see if you can get that shot? Let's see if you can do it. That one right there. Come on.
One? This one? Okay, here, I just did it right there.
No. Come on. Let's see real world how hard it is to get that.
I gotta put my setup in.
Put your lights back.
Put them back. They're really difficult to move. Ginormous light.
So do you have a diffuser on the front of those strobes, or just the...
It's just the diffuser's just holding.
Okay, so it's shooting really, really wide. Yeah, it's just the drop-down diffuser.
Yeah, it's just dropping it down to hold this in place. So.
There we go.
Okay.
Then you're going to put your card up. Your little card.
Grab my battery pack.
Oh, yeah.
That was my Lumidyne battery. Actually, it adds another 500 watts to the light.
So you know what I think would be really great is for our Monday night. For our Monday night IEPPV hangout, is that everybody that tries this grab a photo of your setup and the images that you've taken, and we'll talk about them, and we'll critique them, and we'll look at them on Monday, this coming Monday. Yeah, this is Wednesday. Yeah, yeah, you got like 5 days, right? Monday, Tuesday. Oh, no.
Yeah. Oh, that was way too late.
Well, hopefully.
This is so much harder to do through Lightroom.
Yeah, yeah. And then Nick is in the chat or in the participation room with us. Nick is the one I mentioned earlier. For those of you that weren't here, in 2 weeks' time, Nick will be showing us how to set this up with the actuators and timing the droplets.
Oh, there you go. There you go. I'm done.
Okay. All right. We'll give that to you. That's awesome. That's awesome. So what I'm going to do is, that was too easy. That was just too easy. I wanted to show your images one more time before we wrap up. Let me make sure I get that there. Okay, so let's go over here. So if you guys don't have any more questions, what we're going to do, I'm just going to show you. So those are the ones that you can get once you get it to work. David hasn't proven that yet. He got pretty close.
What?
Dave got pretty close. So just to kind of wrap up, so you got a plastic cup with the pin in it. Okay, so there's a close-up of that pin. It's a heavy-duty pin, so he's poking it from the bottom first, and then he puts the pin in from the top, and it's got a big head on it, and that kind of slows down some of the flow. And so there's kind of the angle. You can see how the lights are set up, and you can see the reflection of the card in the background. And as you saw early, right, the challenges that we have to go through to get the focus. He's shooting with a macro, but you don't have to shoot with the macro. Anything that will focus in close enough, even if you can't get in and isolate that drop against the water, don't worry about that. Use the lens that you have, and you can crop that in, and you can get a really nice image. And that'll actually help you with your depth of field too. So because Dave is using a macro and he's in nice and close, that depth of field is very, very shallow. So, and you don't have to have a room full of printers. It's fine. You can do this anywhere. And I would suggest that if you're going to focus, that you get yourself something that you can sit in the water, that the top of the device is going to be right about where the splash is going to be. I mean, it could be a flashlight, it could be a fingernail polish bottle, it could be anything, a bolt, that you can put in there that won't float away, and then just focus on that, and that's where the drop is going to be. And that can help you get your depth of field too. So
awesome.
All right. Hey, everybody, be safe.
Looking forward to that day.
Have an awesome evening. I will see many of you guys around. So take care, everybody.